Hello friends, and welcome back to another ride, and today we're going to be riding into Yorkshire. We're doing the ride which I did a few weeks ago, but in reverse. I nearly said backward, but I don't think that is quite the right term. So we're going to go up the A683 here from Kirby Lonsdale up to Sedbergh. Now, I've ridden this any number of times, and I think I might have posted, or perhaps a year ago, a video of it. I think it was in winter time, and that would have been on the Mercia. But I thought, well, today it's an empty road. It's about 9:30 now. Set off from home a little bit earlier than that, and just enjoyed this this run up this road so much. I thought I'd share it with you. I hope you don't mind. Now, as you can see, we're into the getting towards the tail end of May, and the leaves are out in full, and we've got the lovely ramsons all the way along the hedgerows there, and it was just a beautiful ride. I think probably because it was so quiet, but also I was fresh to the riding, and all just seemed to go beautifully. So I thought we'd have a little chat about various things, and to start with, I thought I'd mention some of the other people that do these moto vlogs, as they're called, I believe, and one of them is Mercia Moto, and I've really been enjoying his Easter ride. He went to Wales for the Easter, and he's been putting the various rides from that Easter ride up onto his YouTube channel. Oh, absolutely magnificent. The scenery that he rides through, just completely stunning. And he rides them at a pace which I can enjoy. So that's why I've been enjoying his. So I highly recommend a little viewing of his ride. Now, normally at this sort of point, I head off to the right here, up a little lane, and go across Barbendale. But that takes a little bit longer than this road up here, and one or two of my friends who live locally weren't terribly aware of this road. They often go up the motorway if they want to go to Sedbergh, but actually I find this much more pleasant. So I thought I'd add that. I hope you enjoy watching that rather than going up the motorway. An alternative. And somebody else I should mention, because I actually feel we're good friends now. I've been watching him right from the very start when he first got his Meteor, which he calls Buddy, and that's Economical Rides. And I won't make the mistake that my other friend James, also known as Ainsworth Rider, he confuses me and Economical Rides, and very often talks about me when he really means Economical Rides. Anyway, back to ER, as we call him, and his dog Ruby. So hello Economical Rides and Ruby. So yes, if you want to see some sunshine, go across to Spain, and Gary, as his name is, he now has a Himalayan, as they're often called, and he rides along trails which I thoroughly enjoyed. Seeing him go through some sand at times and splashes, and getting that bike nice and dirty. Up in Scotland, of course, we've got Bleary view, and he's always worth watching, especially when he rides his classic 350. It's got a lovely sound to it, that classic 350 of his, and he takes us through some Scottish countryside, which is always enjoyable. Now today we're on Hurricane, that's the dapper grey model Hunter, and we've got our panniers fitted, and the SW Motec panniers for anybody interested. In fact, that brings me to a comment which I received on, I can't think which of my videos it was. They'd watched, and they must have seen the panniers. Anyway, this came in, I think, from somewhere in Asia, because it all came in as symbols rather than text. And I did a Google Translate on it. Amazingly, Google translated it perfectly. And they wanted to know what those panniers were. So yes, I bought the SW Motec panniers for the Meteor way back 18 months ago now, and fitted them to that. And when I sold the Meteor, I decided to make arrangements to be able to fit these same panniers to one of the Hunters. So that's what I've done. And now I should also talk about the fact that the Hurricane has now had its first service. And this I did myself, because the motorcycle shop that I got the Hurricane and actually other motorcycles from, they always used to pick up the bike, take it, do the service and bring it back at very low cost. So it's well worth doing. But unfortunately their driver has retired, and so happy retirement, Phil, and they no longer offer this service. Now, quite how they get on for delivering new bikes, I don't know, but anyway, it's up to them. So yes, I thought, oh right, okay, I have to do my own service then. Now, doing a service shouldn't really bother me much. I mean, I've been servicing my air-cooled VW Beetle for the last 45 years, changing engines and things like that, and I am a retired engineer, rather like my other friend Paul. Hello Paul. And yes, we share something. We both removed the petrol stickers from the tops of our Hunters. Getting back to the service, the only thing that really put me off doing it, I suppose, was the warranty. But I decided that if I kept all the documentation for the parts, and when I say parts, there's only an oil filter and the oil. I mean, that's the only parts you need, and that's another story, but I'll get back to it in a minute. So yes, taking the fuel tank off, I thought, this is going to be a little bit tricky. Will petrol pour out of this? Because I had actually looked at, there were three or perhaps even more now, videos on YouTube showing how to do these services. Now, changing the oil is no real problem at all. That's fairly straightforward, and there's a Royal Enfield video on how to do that, which is very clear. But there are some other ones on YouTube for doing the tappets, or valve clearances, call them what you will, and you have to remove the fuel tank and a couple of other things underneath the fuel tank. And I was a bit concerned about fuel coming out of the fuel tank, and the other mistake I made actually was to have a fairly full tank of fuel, which made it rather heavy to lift off. Anyway, I looked at Stuart Fillingham's service video on it, and he had petrol coming over one of the blisters on the side of the left hand side, the air cleaner blister on the, I think it was a Classic he did his on, and I thought, not too sure about that. He talks about only an egg cup full of petrol, but an egg cup full of petrol is quite a bit. He's sloshing around. But then I noticed Nick and Jody, or Nick and Jody's episode, he had done one, and his is really clear, and no petrol came out at all. So if you want to do your own service, I think that his is the video to watch it a couple of times. And now the Haynes manuals often talk about the number of spanners in terms of expertise that you need to do these sort of jobs in their workshop manuals. And I would put the oil change probably at a 2-spanner job, and the valve clearance at 3 spanners. So if you've never done any of these sort of tasks before, then it's probably not for you. I think you need to have done some spanner work on older machines, which it doesn't really matter on. But it really isn't terribly difficult at all if you've done some servicing on other machines. And taking that fuel tank off, following Nick's excellent YouTube video of it, was absolutely straightforward. The Hunter is very slightly different underneath the fuel tank compared with the Meteor or the classic 350s. The engine's the same, but it's just the arrangement beneath the fuel tank. There was another little bracket which I had to loosen the bolt to it and just move it backwards, and that gives you enough clearance to remove the rocker cover. And then the only other real difficulty, if you can call it that, was there's a gasket, a rubber gasket, which has to fit into a groove on that rocker cover, and it's just, you have to ease that back with your fingers, and it's a little bit tricky, but anyway, all done. And yes, so we're out on this run. Now this isn't the first run I've taken it out. I did a little trial of about 30 miles after I'd done the service to make sure all was fine, and it was, and it's nice and quiet now, because the inlet valve needed just tightening down slightly. That was a little bit wide, the clearance on that. The exhaust was fine, and it's running very nicely. Now, as you saw when we set off in the earlier part of this road about 11 minutes ago, the sun was out, but we're now, I'm afraid, as we're heading north, I noticed that the sun is starting to disappear, and in fact there were a few spots of rain as we got towards Edinburgh. So that was this is something that I've noticed, that the weather can be wonderful back home, but very soon you head into some rather dull weather. Never mind, we should enjoy the ride nonetheless. I did mention to Alex at Bleary View that I couldn't do what he does, which is to talk as he rides, and he does extremely well. I just couldn't do that, so I'm afraid you've got to put up with me yakking on after the event. So what I lack in spontaneity, I really should get right, shouldn't I? Other terms often don't. I have to edit these any number of times to get it right. If I was actually talking while I was riding, goodness knows what we'd do. Oh look, sunset again, lovely. So yes, apparently someone that Bleary used to work with, he just said, look, just do it. I thought, yes, well, I'm afraid no matter how much I tried, I couldn't do it. I like to think my thoughts, but I'm not sharing them with you. Not in terms of doing the narration anyway. Now this is rather a nice little bit where he runs through these trees. It drops away quite dramatically on the left-hand side, and that's the River Loon down there on the left, and we'll be crossing over a little bridge very soon. And this was actually the spot where I stopped once and had a look. This was back about 3 months ago, I suppose it was now, and we saw the Loon in full flood. We'd had so much rain over that winter period. And some of you have watched my last little short video, which was about the riding around the back end of Carver, avoiding Carver town centre. Here's a bridge over the Loon, and someone was a bit cheeky, mentioned that they were expecting a jogger to come past me any minute. They'd ride so slowly, but it's true. I notice these motorcycles come past. They go a little bit faster than me, but that's up to them. I'm quite happy trundling along, and that's something that Paul mentioned. He said I like to trundle as well. And the trundling twosome. Oh, there's a third one. I don't remember him. Oh, and a fourth. Are there any more? Yeah, oh yes there are, look at that. And the fifth. Oh, that looks like a cruiser, as they're called. Feet forward job. I wonder where they're off to. Not going my way, I don't think. Now, where was I? Oh yes, that was Four Lanes End, one of those many Four Lanes ends that we have up here. And if you'd gone straight on up the road, you would have ended up at the M6 motorway eventually. And over in the right hand side, over towards the front there, you can see the Hull Gills. So we're getting close to Sedbergh. I noticed that last one cut that corner rather. It's not very wise just there. You get cars coming around that's on their own side of the road. Stick to your own lane, that's what I say. So, what am I to say? Now something else I've been enjoying actually is Roadcraft Nottingham. Now I was recommended this by my friend over in New Zealand, Jody, and yeah, rather interesting to watch, because it came about because I am not familiar with the term countersteering. Now, we never had I'm sure we never had countersteering in the 60s when I began riding. We just had, riding. But yes, this countersteering has come up a few times, and it came up with Economical Rides. He used this term when he had to avoid someone who was on his side of the road in a ride that he was on, and he said, I use countersteering to avoid it. I said, countersteering? I've never come across this. What's this? And so I did a Google, and there are a few YouTube things about it. They weren't terribly clear. And then that bloke on a motorbike, he's a trainer for other cyclists, and he explained it, and but I still wasn't entirely sure. And then Roadcraft Nottingham did an extremely good demonstration of countersteering. Well, I should just carry on riding as I do, I think, because this suits me how I ride. But it's as well to be aware of something, I suppose, that I might want to use. I don't know if it's something that I don't do. It's all a bit confusing to me. Life is a bit confusing, I'm afraid. It gets more confusing as I get older. I used to think I knew it all when I was a teenager. There we go. Now, of course, we're coming up to early June, and early June means a TT for many, and it certainly used to for me. I mean, I was an avid TT watcher on the television and listened to on Radio 2 it used to be on at the time, and that was because exams always came up during TT week, so I was never actually able to get over there. And I mean, we are talking when I was about 9 or 10, and then through into my early 20s I was still taking exams. Not always happened then, so the only way I could actually enjoy it was to watch the BBC, and Murray Walker used to do it, and he used to have a helicopter, of course, and it was the days of the Japanese starting to race at the TT, Honda, and then Suzuki, Yamaha, and I used to think it was wonderful. So yes, I finally did get over in 1968 and went for practice week and TT week. But on this ride I did notice that we're coming up to the Appleby horse fair, which involves a lot of Irish travellers coming over and parking everywhere. Horses. I mean, I'm quite happy about the horse-drawn ones. They're attractive. You can see that they've been doing that for centuries. That's fine. But when you get these hideous great caravans parked everywhere, I'm afraid it does despoil the landscape somewhat. And I've noticed that they've been sticking poles up to stop these these caravans parking everywhere. And you'll notice those poles along the verges here. And in fact, when we got up onto the high moorland, I discovered that yes, there was one parked up there coming early. So we're coming to the end of this part of the ride, so I hope you've enjoyed this 20-minute part of it, and we'll be heading off over the moorland back down the other road, the B road, later in part 2. So hope you can join me for that, and see you then. Oh, and this might make you smile. It did me.